Dear friends, the following is a conversation with Chief Darrell Bob. I had the honor of spending an entire week together with Darrell. Darrell is a First Nation chief from Canada, British Columbia, who has come to Europe for the first time in his life to participate in a ceremony here in Germany. This ceremony brought together knowledge holders and elders from all 5 continents. They all share a deep understanding of nature and our wonderful home, this beautiful planet. They know how we can truly connect with nature and with ourselves. These 4 days deeply moved me and connected me to something that I had lost, and with me many other people in the so-called Western world. The connection with our ancestors, with the thousands of generations that have lived before us. If even one of these men and women had not existed and had not survived, had not had and raised children, we would not be here today. And this bond with the ancestors makes me feel a long-term perspective towards my future descendants for the first time in my life. We are embedded in an immeasurably long line of ancestors and descendants, and we must ask ourselves whether we are the generation that destroyed everything, or whether we will be the ancestors who managed to turn things around towards more unity among people, more unity between humans and nature, a balanced equilibrium between individual interests and community interests, ultimately leading to more love in this world. Darrell deliberately did not talk about spiritual rituals and sacred ceremonies in this conversation. He does not believe that this can be conveyed over the internet. He urges us to take action and gain experience ourselves. He also dispels the romanticization of foreign indigenous cultures. He clearly states that every culture, every tribe can find its own roots and its own ancient knowledge. And yet, this conversation is filled with lessons about humanity and meaningful action. I would also like to express my heartfelt thanks to my dear brother Christian, who convinced Darrell in many conversations to make the journey and come to us in Germany. Here, my dear friends, is Chief Darrell Bob. Now we are sitting here with good friends in Munich, and we have here now Chief Darrell Bob, and it's such a pleasure to have you here in Germany and Europe, and I'm very happy to have the chance now to talk with you. And dear Darrell, maybe can you introduce yourself, because you can tell the story the best.
Sure, thanks Konstantin. It's good to be here. It's good to chat with you. Coming into a different territory, and having to honor how things are done in different territories, and being respectful to the work that people do here. My name is my name is Shadow Wolf in our language. I come from a nation, Stadlium, in British Columbia, Canada, in a small community called Chachlip. That's where I'm from. Population about 1,100, about 300 on reservation. Yeah.
And Darrell, and you have a long life already behind you.
When we come up to these ages, we certainly have a long life, good or bad. We have to work through some things. We go through kinks in our life where change could be quite devastating, and how people are raised in different situations. I look around in this country I'm in now, very different than back home. Things are done different. how people are different, you know. So you kind of got to get used to all of this different way of life. And again, for the little bit of time I'm here, I have to adjust and adapt to the environment that's given to me, you know. So here I am in Germany, of all places, doing an interview.
Yeah.
With some good friends.
With some good friends, we're sitting here, and Darrell. So your life, I would say, as the stories you told me already started. Let's say the first part of your life was a very hard part, and today you seem to be a man who is in his full power and his full nature. How was the journey, would you say?
Well, like anybody else that you know, kind of grew up in beyond you know, the 80s, you know, life got pretty tough for a lot of kids back in the day and my time. Growing up on reservation, getting sent to residential school, and for those of you in the German community, hi, little explanation about the residential school. You know, the residential school is a school that how we were taken from our families. So I did do. I'm doing my best to try and write a little bit of something that how I was raised. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have somebody read this little piece for me.
Okay.
And give people kind of an understanding of how I started becoming who I am today. Mm-hmm.
So then we maybe should pass the microphone to her. I can give her to mine. Wait, leave it like that. Just hold it and talking to.
Here.
Okay. And we have. Yeah. Okay. Please.
I think it was September 1965 when I left for the Kamloops residential school. I will never forget that time in my life when I first left home. This is the first time I could ever recall my grandpa really hurting inside, knowing we were going to this place. I could see his eyes were watering as I walked out the door with my grandmother to meet the bus by the main highway. I noticed my papa could not even leave his chair to walk with me down to watch me leave on the bus. He just stayed there with my brother Howard. This was probably the saddest day of my life, and for my grandparents as well. Carrying my little suitcase with a number of new clothes in my little bag, I knew I had to go, because I asked my mom, "Why do I have to leave home?" She replied, "If you don't go, we will be put in jail and you will be taken anyways." This was a memory I could never understand. Why do I have to leave home? Then comes my most awful life changes, which forever made me the man I am today. This is my walk in time.
So, you know, that's kind of the bit I started to write around the impacts of residential school. And I spent 10 years in Kamloops Indian Residential School. Mm-hmm. Prior to becoming to that place, I remember growing up not knowing the language very much, you know, and going to this residential school was just a, you know, it's the first time I seen, you know, real running water. I seen a toilet flush of all things, you know, it's very showers, different things, you know. Yeah, so it was quite a dramatic change, because I remember before that I hardly spoke English. So my grandma would try and teach me how to speak English with little books. Even though she didn't know how to read much, she tried to teach me how to speak English. I think because now when I look back at it today, I think it's because, you know, a lot of times knowing the stories where when we entered into these schools, conducted by the one I went to with Catholic school, conducted by priests and nuns. And I remember, you know, going into this place, not knowing much English, and my grandma trying to teach me a little bit of English. You know, I know because she could barely sign her name, you know. It was very shaky. She didn't know how to write very well. my papa as well, my grandpa as well, my mom and papa. They didn't know how to write very well.
Yeah.
But, you know, back in Canada, you know, the old perceived friendly country of the world, you know, they're not so friendly to natives, you know. They took us from our families. They tried what's known as to kill the Indian within, the child. A form of genocide that was created to strip us of our language, strip us of our identity. You know, they made a law, I think, back in the 1870s, early 1870s, you know, which created the Indian Act and all of this stuff that followed, where the law became, you know, it was banned. Our tribes were not allowed to practice our traditional way of life.
Your traditional way of life, your ceremonies, and it was forced that children had to go to this residential schools.
Yeah. They were forced, you know, over time, like I said, you know, in the beginning it was, you know, back then it was created. These schools started to come in to what's known as British Columbia, but in ours, we call it our Statlium Nation, and they started coming in and taking these children from their homes. And when they took the children from their homes, basically the threat was, if you don't send your child to residential school, we're going to take you, we're going to throw you in jail, and we're going to take the children anyways. So that's what happened.
And how long did you have to stay in this type of schools?
Well, I stayed for 10 years. The 10th year I left. You know, I went there, and I became a very, I think you call it a problematic child. You know, I was starting to drift away from school. So I moved back home, you know, and...
But in this 10 years, so like, were there holidays where you could go for holidays for 2 weeks home, or for 4 weeks or something like that, or?
I would say most children did, but the rule in residential school is there's only one phone on our reserve. So nobody answered the phone to where you get off the bus for us, because we were, you know, we had 3 different homes there, and then one in a different area. So we basically had 4 kind of areas we lived. And if we didn't the church didn't get a hold of my grandparents, then we were to stay there for Christmas and the spring holidays, but we go home for the summer, because we always knew where to get off in the summertime. In the summertime, we got off at our farm where, you know, where I grew up.
So this means it was almost a year you stayed there without any contact to your family, and then you got home for 2 months or something like that. And I can imagine, I try to imagine, to feel it. How old were you when you had to go there?
I first left home at 5 years old, 1965.
Years. 5 years, 65. I can just try to imagine how it feels for a child to be for so long back away from home, and I can try to feel how it feels for a child at the end of the summer holidays, and you know you have to go back.
It's something that's really kind of hard to explain, you know, because when you're taken from your home and you're basically put into this place where you don't really know who's going to look after you, they don't teach you, they teach you how to read and write, that's it. You know, they teach you that, and they teach you how to pray. You know, that was one of the things, you know, you had to pray.
You had to pray, but Christian prayers.
Yeah, the Catholic Church made us pray. You know, I don't know the difference between Christian and all of these other things. All I know is religion creates war. That's how things are in society today, and for many, many generations. Religion creates war. And this is a war we had to fight. We had to fight a war against the church to hold on to our spirituality and our traditional knowledge. That war continues today.
Still today.
Still today.
But the residential schools are not anymore as an...
No, the residential schools are no longer anymore. But the reality is, in Canada, this beautiful country of Canada, there's more Native children in care than there ever was when I was in residential school. The Canadian government and how they design the systems are created to take children even when they're just come out of the womb. So, yeah,
How do they what is the system? How does it work that they take it out from the family?
They create laws so that they can take children.
Okay, Darrell. Maybe let's continue with your story first, and then maybe we can go back to this, how it works in Canada. Is it okay for you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
Maybe.
guess
I think
I understand what you're saying because I'm a chief, so I kind of have to combine both. But yeah, sure. Growing up in residential school, I stayed there for 10 years. I left. I was, alcoholic, whatever you want to. I drank a lot.
Already in the school or after the school?
During school.
Already?
During school, after school, on weekends. Start, I don't know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
Then drink again Sunday, then Monday, and then go to work Tuesday and Wednesday.
Okay, something like that.
Something like that.
So it was like a kind of a messy
well,
situation
you did what you had to do to survive. You had to kill the pain, Yeah.
Okay, and but today you are such a different person. I perceive you as a very, very strong and clear person. So how did you push through? How did you come back to your own path? How did you come back to your spiritual and?
Well, it's not a glorified thing. It's just practicing your tradition and bringing it back. It's about healing within yourself and creating an opportunity to grow again, because people think it's a big thing, but really it's not. It's just practicing your way of life. And today's society, because there's so many people lost without culture and without an identity, people in various different parts of the world glorify it. They think it's, but at the same time I have my struggles. I had to figure out how I was going to heal. And one of the ways I went to it was through a sweat from the elders. One elder phoned me up and said, "Darrell, I'm having a sweat. You want to come?" I said, "Yeah."
Okay, and that was the time where you still were with alcohol and a messed life?
No, I was clean. I cleaned up in 1981.
You cleaned up, okay.
21 years old.
You took a decision, you just said, okay, no, it's...
Yeah, I won't tell that story, but yes.
Yeah, okay.
I made a decision that this is what's going to happen. I'm not going to go with that anymore.
Okay. So you cleaned up and you brought more order in your life, and then you got a call?
Well, no, I cleaned up, but that didn't mean I was a good dad. I didn't know how to be a parent. My children, they grew up just like they were in residential school. Why? Because my 10 years in that residential school, nobody ever told me they loved me. I never told my kids that. Not until I started to realize that it was an impact on them. And I started to think about that.
Yeah. So, would you say it's never too late to tell somebody that you love him?
It's never too late.
It's never too late, right?
Yeah.
So you did it later?
Oh yeah, not very late. I started to realize it when they moved in with me at home as a single dad. I started to go, holy, So my kids actually taught me how to love again by moving back home with me. So I ended up kind of raising my boys kind of by myself, 3 boys.
Wow.
And I had to learn how to cook. I had to learn how to clean, and that goes back to again a teaching. We can't be so macho and not help. You know, I had to do laundry, I had to do dishes, I had to learn how to cook again, I had to mop the floor, I had to go to work, make a living for my children, and then on top of that, be a leader. At some times I did that. I had to do it. So, you know, so I decided at the time to work in take a shift from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Oh my God, okay.
So soon as I got off work, I went right home and I started to cook for my children before they go to school, make them lunch, get them on a bus, have a nap, get up and do my political work, my house cleaning and all of that other stuff, and then come home and make sure they had food for supper. Best thing I ever found out about was back home they call it a slow cooker. you just put your food in there all in one bunch and then you just let it cook all day, you know, and when you get back home you got a meal. But
I need to get one of those.
Oh yeah, I know to me they were amazing at the time. You know, the number one thing it's good for a bachelor, a can opener.
Okay, yes.
You know, can opener, you just open the food and you just kind of, okay. Bachelor's greatest invention. Yeah. But anyway, that's what happened, you know, just being kind of, you know, relaxed about this. That's what happened. I had to change my perspective on how I looked at life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, before you ask the next question, at the same time, I still had a bit of anger and rage in me, and it kind of reflected on my children and how they acted, you know. And yeah, that's they, you know, at first my children, when they left home, you know, ended up having a hard time because of me not knowing too late how to be a parent, basically.
You just mentioned in a little side sentence, and again, this was a teaching. And no, I've been traveling with you now since for 4 or 5 days, so I got to know you a little bit, and I saw that in your way of living, in your way of your culture, I guess, or I see that everything that happens can be a teaching. Right, for you. So it can be, so it's like the life gives you a situation where you can learn, and it's the situation for you, the right situation for you. Is it do I see it in the right way, or?
Well, every opportunity, you know, every situation creates an opportunity, whether it's positive or negative. You ask yourself, which wolf do you want to feed? The white wolf or the black wolf? You know, do you want the positive or the negative? You know, and those are simple teachings that we go, you know, live with, you know, and it's not glorified. I'm just Darrell.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, we go to ceremonies, we pray, we do things, you know, we're just trained. I have to be, you know, very respectful for my people. You know, to me, that's very important, because that's who I represent as when I'm a chief. As an elected chief, I have to have that responsibility, but I also have to carry myself in a good way for my people, because everywhere I go, every time I talk, whether I'm on holidays like I am now or not, when I'm on holidays, I still represent my people. So I have to continuously work at that and continuously show good representation. And, you know, going to ceremonies and learning different things or seeing different things, being part of different things. Sometimes they're uncomfortable. You know, in Germany here, going to a ceremony here was at the beginning very uncomfortable. You know, and just because you're not in your territory. You know, and there's responsibilities. And those responsibilities are to ensure that when we go through ceremonies like this, that we have the permission of the people of the land. You know, the man that ran this thing, you know, Helmut, you know, I asked him, and I apologize if I say his name wrong, but
It's okay.
he, you know, I asked him if I could run sweat and help out a little bit. He said, yeah. And he just said, do it the way, you know, you do it at home. So I do that. So it creates opportunity and it creates relationships with people. I truly believe that when you ask about me coming here, it was here to create relationships. Because today everything's changing. You know, Mother Earth is changing. You know, she's going through her purification ceremony, purifying herself. She's burning, you know. Everything is quickening, everything is moving fast. You know, the world is changing, the whole world. But people are in denial. And that's one thing I like to voice is people are in denial. You know, they close their blinders. They don't want to see. But one day they'll wake up without, and then they're going to realize. That's the way I look at it. It's my way of looking at it. But that change is coming. You know, I mean, COVID was a real amazing sign. I'm not saying I liked it. It was hard on our people, hard on everybody. The fear that it carried, that when the virus first came out and how strong it was. And then it started to dilute or thin out and become weaker. But in the beginning, it was at its strongest and people were dying. But when people started staying home and the airplanes stopped flying, and the cars stopped moving, and the people stopped doing certain things on the land, it became very, very clean. The water became clear again. And this is how powerful corporation is. On the other side of it, on the negative side of COVID, when you look at it from where I'm from, the gas and oil industry just kept right on plugging away. They didn't have to abide by those rules. Even though people were getting sick, they still went ahead. Production, production, production. Why? Corporate corruption. You know, so there's a lot of things that we learn from the teachings of the elders on our responsibility to look at the land, you know. And for me, part of coming here was to visually see how people are around how they treat the land and how they talk about the land from different countries. You know, that was very important for me to hear. And learning some things, but at the same time, just having to be respectful and not cross any lines. And to play just a little part of something that people, you know, wanted to learn a little bit.
Maybe for our listeners, we went together to a ceremony and went there for 4 days now, so just that they know what you're talking about. And you just said people are in denial today, especially in what we call the Western world, or maybe the whole globe. I mean, meanwhile, and I often think about why is it so hard to take responsibility, to take really responsibility for the fate of our planet, for our children to come. And one thing that I learned from you is that you honor your ancestors. And I think that is something that is lost in our culture. We don't honor our ancestors anymore. People, if I ask people about their ancestors, they say, oh, maybe I know my grandfather or my great-grandfather, but I don't know anymore. And they don't have a connection to what is more. And if you don't have a connection to your ancestors, you have also no connection to the long lines to come of children, of future ancestors. So is there anything you can tell me about how do you worship ancestors, and what can we learn from your nations?
Well, just looking and listening to the several questions that you kind of poked in there, I'm trying to kind of track it. My apologies for looking to the side.
No.
But when we carry that responsibility, every nation has a responsibility. Every nation has to figure out, or every person has to figure out where they come from, what their lineage is, who their grandfathers are, who their great-grandfathers, grandmas and grandpas are. You know, and understand that family lineage from both sides of the family so that they can create that identity. Then in that identity becomes a responsibility. You know, and again, going back to today's society, it's basically lost. Because when identity is lost, then there's that big search. For instance, you know, and I'm not speaking, by no means am I speaking bad of the kiva. The kiva ceremony was amazing. You know, many people from many different parts of the world came together in Germany to do a ceremony and pray. And how it was done was very very, I would say different for sure, because I'm not from here, so I have to, again, I was observant. But that responsibility teaching is very important. What role do I play on Mother Earth? What role do I play in my community? What do I do in my community? What can I do for the betterment of all the community? So like back home, you know, our people take responsibilities. They hunt, they fish, you know, berry pick, you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, the medicines, just different things, looking after families and stuff like that. It has its ups and downs, but, you know, it's changing. Sometimes things are different. The medicines come earlier because it's getting too warm. There's many different things that play a role in this. So responsibility is really, really critical in how we, you know, do things. You know, really, I would say, you know, we talk about ancestors. I mentioned about the family lineage. Look back in your own family lineage to see where you come from. Your identity will become clearer. And then when you ceremony on your land, then you start to have, you know, maybe you have visions on what you're going to see, which is amazing. You know, and that's okay. That's all good. That's just what happens. But, you know, when you have a vision, for instance, like if my friend had a vision, who was it, from Germany, and they come to me and ask me, well, I had this vision about my homeland. I can't answer that. I'm not from this territory, so I don't understand. So that's what's happening in society today. People are going to different people asking for interpretation of dreams that don't belong within. You know, so it's very. I don't want to make hurt anybody, but it's very sometimes too crossed. You know, cultures coming together to try and figure something out, and sometimes it just doesn't belong there. So it's part of that growing process of change. You know, just the sweat lodge, all it does is open, like for instance, I'll use sweat lodge. All it does is open a door for you to have a look at yourself and healing. Like I did in 1985, my first sweat lodge, I had that opportunity to look within myself to see where I belong. Yeah, so that's kind of where it kind of, I think for me, in the most simplest, without getting into enormous detail, that's the problem.
May I ask you, because you said, okay, there are different cultures, and let's say visions from other cultures might not apply to your territory, and so to your culture, and so it's maybe not possible for you to interpret those visions or give advice on them. But on the other side, isn't there also some common things for example, sweat lodges they are original also in Europe. You have them in Americas, or ancestors, having ancestors. We have common ancestors. I mean, if you go back far enough, to 200,000 years, we have the same ancestors.
Well, again, that's a debate from
Yeah.
the difference between myself and yourself.
Yeah.
That's the difference between Turtle Island, which is known as Turtle Island of the Indigenous people of North America,
Yeah.
and Europe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, over on this side, they say we have almost the same ancestors. But back home,
Mm-hmm.
we have a different story.
Mm-hmm.
Which is different than here.
Okay.
So, and people are trying to say, oh, they're still trying to find a way to say Indigenous it came from this way.
From
They
this
have
way.
from this side of
From the
continent.
Europe side.
Yeah, from way
You
over
think-
this side.
you think it
and
does? Okay.
what I think, it doesn't matter. I'm
No,
not
no,
a
but-
scientist.
okay,
But
yeah.
I'll just finish.
Yeah.
What's happening is that then, to people, it kind of helps them validate why they should enter into this realm of spirituality. All it does, again, I'll go back to where I started. All it does, again, is it opens doors for a person to find their identity. And that really starts to help. And then they start to shift. Kind of like this Kiva ceremony, where I seen the Celtics, is that what you say it?
Yeah.
And they started to do their ceremonies, right? It's different than ours.
Yeah.
And they pray the way they pray, and searching through visions and dreams. And it's good. That's the way, at least I was taught, but everybody's taught different. Everybody has different teachers. We're all not the same. We're all different. Every sweat lodge that's run is run differently than another. And those are things that people, understand, should understand. Because sometimes I get a friend that comes over to my place and says, oh, you don't make a fire like that. This is how you make the fire. And I'm going, oh, really? Where did you learn that? Oh, I learned that way down this way, not even in our territory. Somebody comes into our territory, whether it's native or non-native, trying to teach us how to make a fire. That don't even live there. Well, it's the same thing. Where that...
No, but I think it's, I hear you, Darrell, but I think it's for us in Europe and in Germany, I think it's a little bit different. It's not that we want to tell you that we were first or something like that. It's more other way around, that we have lost these traditions completely. Our, what you say, for example, Celtic traditions or ancient traditions, they're completely gone.
Yeah.
We have now other traditions, and also again 1,000, 2,000 years, and I think there are many people here starting to look for these old traditions, and now there's nobody there anymore, and this is why we look to you. This is why we are so interested in your nations.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
And and going back to what I'm saying, is scientists are trying to prove that we crossed the Bering Strait.
Yeah.
And when they try and prove that, they're trying to prove that we didn't exist in North America, right? So that's that aside. But the other part of it is that loss of identity. That's where it comes so critical to find your identity. It was so simple, and you're still, and help you, Konstantin, try to understand what I'm saying. You have to understand who your grandparents are, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents. Today I had the honor of seeing your family's lineage through a building. They're in that building. There must be a piece of history that tells you what you do. That's something that's searching for, right? Because in those buildings that old, I bet you, and this is just my thought today, when we were walking behind you guys, and you guys were talking and pointing, and I wanted to take a picture of you guys just walking, but you guys turned around. But what I was thinking at the time to take that picture is looking at that building. When you look at that building, you're looking at something of your lineage, of your history, of your family. But me, when I look at that building, I ask myself, boy, I wonder what's buried in there that shows them who they truly are through ceremony and prayer. And that sometimes those things happen because somebody might just shove something away somewhere where it couldn't be found until, like the pyramids, right? They're always searching for something. Well, you look at that great big building and I'm going, man, there must be something in there that shows their identity of who they are. And what that ceremonies they did. But they come through visions and dreams too. You know, like your brother, you know, Christian, you know, has these amazing dreams. But sometimes we just can't interpret them. Why? Because they come from here. And then when you talk to somebody else from around here and they go, oh yeah, I remember, you know, it's bringing that knowledge back up of a little knowledge. I can't answer the questions from here. I truly can't. It's just, I can't cross that line.
Yeah.
But what I can say is that through ceremony, it's nobody's saying don't do it. People are just saying there's that opportunity to open the door. And our people never, you know, they don't say no. They're very, very, you know, yes, very strict. Or sometimes they'll, you know, not right now. Or, you know, everybody's different. Every ceremony is different. And that's so important for people to understand. Because when you understand ceremony, then you understand the responsibility that comes with ceremony. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Darrell. So maybe shall we talk about your place where you are, where you live, and what you do there at the moment? Can you tell us a little about that?
Well, Konstantin, I do absolutely nothing. I'm just kidding. You got to have a bit of humor. We can't get too serious in this interview, you know.
Yeah, it's okay.
Back home, you know, we you know, as the chief of my community, we have that responsibility as of governing our community, you know, and addressing issues that you know we face. Is that just like any municipality or town or village, there's, you know, things that we have to take care of there. That aside, I won't talk about that because that's more of a political thing that belongs in my community. But the other side, when you flip the coin on the other side, where it lands, it lands in me wanting to help people through ceremonies, through, you know, help them through drug addiction, through like sweat lodge, you know, just singing, drumming, you know, help understand teachings in life and stuff like that. So there's various different things that we do. And at the same time, for me, it's very hard because I want to build a healing house there, but I won't tie myself to a community, a nation, a municipality, or the government. For the main reason, because when I build this healing house, it has to be based on ceremony and the land. Teachings on the land, by the land, for the land, and for the healing. What people fail to realize in my travels of helping many men is that a lot of times people write our drug addicts off. They think, yeah, you know, they're not going anywhere. But I found in my travels, in my many different travels, they're far easier to teach than somebody that's educated. Because they know how to listen, they want to learn, they're eager, they're disciplined, they want to be strong so that they can do their best to heal. And, you know, these people, yeah, they have a hard time in their life, they're addicted, But at the same time, they want to learn, they're eager to learn, they're eager to heal. The problem is that the addiction is so heavy. That's why I'm building a healing house, is to help these people. I can only help them mostly in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I want to build a healing house on my land so I can work year round. But it's very hard because things are very expensive and I don't ask people for anything. You know, sometimes people just say, oh, here. And I say, okay, thank you. Really appreciate that. It's an honor, you know, and we'll do our best. So that's where we're at right now, and helping people with various different teachings. Yeah. And it's fun.
It's fun?
It's fun.
Okay.
You know, we have fun. We just do things. I do teachings 4 days. We never get, you know, yeah, we get serious. You know, yeah, there's a lot of tears. There's a lot of good things that happen in healing, but also we make it fun by playing some games I won't, you know, put out there because that would, you know, take away the healing because they're games for healing. But at the same time, we just have good laughs, good, you know, good ceremonies and good teachings. And they learn a lot about themselves.
So, and they come up to you, the place where you live and where you are is quite a remote place.
Yeah,
it's far away from anything else.
You know, it's good because, and thanks for asking that question, because a lot of times these guys come up to our land. It's kind of in a hidden area. You can't see, you can only see the road a little bit. And by the time people pass by my driveway, they're already gone by. And so there's no real opportunity for people to see anybody that's down there doing their work. For men, you know, it's more of a pride thing, I think. I was like that. I know a few other guys said they were like that, where, you know, we're not going to go to a office building to sit there in front of somebody and when everybody sees you walk in. They don't do that. They like to do their work by them, and you know, very confidentially, so that they can heal. You know, the pride, ego, whatever, you know, hurt, scared. It's all there, but we're there. Just, you know, people don't know.
And the center of the whole healing process is the sweat lodge.
No.
No.
The center of it is the person. And the commitment that person wants to give. Because again, just a reminder that, you know, ceremony is a ceremony. But the work that has to be done is done by the man himself or the woman herself. So, you know, I don't focus on just one thing. You can't. Our tradition doesn't do that. When we talk about the sweat lodge is the sweat lodge. Some of our people don't even go. You know, like I said, you know,
of you people, of your nation.
Yeah, not everybody goes to a sweat. You know, just people that feel their heart, they want to go, they'll go. More of our people are coming out to do it. Not in our nation, or maybe other nations I can't speak for, but I know in our nation, some people are drummers and singers. Some people are dancers. Some people are hunters, fishermen. Everybody has a role. You know, nobody's really expert at everything, right? That's natural law taking place. That community law, how we have to follow in order for us to learn properly from our elders. Yeah. Everybody has a different, you know.
Okay.
And some people are sweat lodge pourers, you know. People are chiefs. People are counselors, leaders in the community, you know. So it's various different things. So not everybody goes, you know, to answer a question, kind of in a long form, but to help people understand, not everybody goes, you know. Yeah.
But many people go to sweat lodges, and for me, sweat lodge was before I experienced it the first time with you, was like sitting in a, let's say, in a warm tent. Let's say, very naive, yeah. We sit together in a very hot, warm tent, and there is some steam or something like that. And I experienced it now, and it's something totally different. It's something very fundamental to me. Is there any possibility? I know you said once, don't learn spirituality by YouTube, and you're so right. So this will be on YouTube, maybe this talk here, this conversation. Yeah. But is there anything, any imagination we can give to some listeners so that they maybe hear the calling and think, oh, that would be interesting for them?
Not simple.
Not simple.
Just look at yourself. It's simple. Just look at yourself. Are you ready to change? You know, we complicate things. Don't learn how to be a plastic shaman on YouTube. I'm not going to teach you anything here. I'm telling you a story. And I'm not going to get into detail of ceremony. Because realistically, you want to learn. You know, excuse my language, but get your ass off the couch and get moving out there and do something. You know, that's our reality. Because if we just sit there and try and learn it on YouTube, we're not going to learn nothing. And any culture, any nationality, we all have to get up there. It's nice to watch, you know, but I mean, plastic shamanism, that's not nice to watch, but watching YouTube sometimes is nice to watch. I love listening to music on YouTube, right? Listen to Sundance songs, listen to powwow songs, watch a movie, you know, just, you know, but, you know, or learn how to change a flat tire, right? It's those easy things, you know.
Especially if there is no tire in the car.
Yeah, I know, but that's an example, but at the same time, that was Konstantin, we got a flat tire in Germany. I seriously, that was amazing. What a trip that was. But we had time to talk and get to know each other better, you know. And that's what the sister said, you know, it's okay because they were, not to drift away, but he brought the subject up, so I want to get into that a little bit. We got a flat tire in a small town. I don't know what the town was, but we were going into town. I made the biggest boo-boo by needing to get some shoes because my ankle was hurting really bad. So we had run away to get some new shoes, and we paid the price by getting a flat tire. And they were going to call Christoph and Russia to come and get us so we can make it back to the ceremony. And the sister from South Dakota, Cheryl Ann, says, no, we're together, we're not separating. We're here on a journey. We get to know each other, right? And that's what we did. We just kind of sat around on the side street, and people were tooting their horn at Christian because he was standing on the middle of the road, and these bicycles were ding, 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 and then Christian had to move over. And I'm going, what the heck was that? And it's like this lady kind of driving by like,
I saw her,
yeah, gives her the scowl, and we're like kind of getting a chuckle out of it, right? But you know, it's part of learning because we got to talk about different things and learn about, you know, what needs to be talked about. But when it comes to spirituality, you know, that's something that's taught hands-on. If you can't learn it hands-on, don't go there. And if you're learning it from YouTube, you're plastic. Because that's not the way to learn it. Not the way I was taught. And some people may be offended, but that's not going to hurt my feeling. You know, I'm trained the way I'm trained. You know, I'm taught the way I'm taught. You know, I'm not in this world to have people like me. You're either going to love me or you're going to hate me, but I still got to do the work I have to do. I can't change that mandate that was gifted to me. In spirituality, that's, you know, it's part of it. It's a small part of it. You know, to me, people say, oh, shaman, you know, medicine man. No way. Not me. You know, that's not cool for me. We're just here for a short time on Mother Earth, and we do what we have to do to get the work done before we leave. We get called home to the star people when our job is done on Mother Earth. That's when we leave. You know, it's that simple. So, you know, I'm not going to teach you on YouTube. I'm not going to answer some certain questions. You know, I might pass and skip over, which is fine. It's my choice. But at the same time, we're having a good talk. and get to know people and understand that, we have to be very strong within ourselves so that we can grow, plant a seed for the children of the future. Yeah, it's my thought anyway.
So, thank you. Maybe just can we talk a little bit more about the people coming to you? Is it okay for you? About
Yeah.
So they come in spring and stay until autumn, or
Oh, no.
they stay for 2 weeks? Or,
No, I have teachings that I do in 2 to 4 day segments.
Okay.
And they come in to take those teachings.
Okay,
And
then
they
they
maybe be coming of age ceremony. Coming of age meaning, learning how to be a man, learning how to be a woman. And that's taught by the elders, conducted by the elders. And that's coming of age is one. I call one the wheel of life, where we just talk about life in general. And I use the colors, use the red, the black, the yellow, and the white as a teaching tool. I guess everybody talks about the medicine wheel, so kind of that concept, but through storytelling. I just tell a story. That's all I do. I don't go outside my, my little box that I'm grew up with, because I can't teach anybody. And this is another problem we have. People are trying to teach people when they haven't experienced something. So they try and teach somebody how to heal from something they never experienced. Like I tell the men, when we want to get into me helping the men, I tell them I never experienced what you did, but I have a son that does. And I understand the pain from the father's side. So that helps me teach them, and they understand that. So I tell them all the time, I love you. Why? Because I love my son, I love them. Just the same, no different, I hurt for my son, but that's just the way it is. But we help. We can't judge people, we help them. You start judging people, don't try and help them, because you're only going to hurt them more. And that's, part of it. And that's why, wherever I go, it's always uncle. And that's okay. Some people may think it's funny, but for me, it's an honor, because that's a sign of respect that I've helped that person. In my heart, I've helped that person somehow. I've taught that person just a little bit to grow. And they do that. And that people don't realize that's a real honor like that. So there's different things in teaching with these guys, because they starve for learning the way of life. So when I teach, like for instance, if somebody was a Cree, from a Cree nation, I don't teach them Cree. I tell my story. They can reflect their nation and their way of life under that story, because there are some common things. The Cree nation, coming of age ceremony, they must have one. We all do. So they can reflect back on that. So it's not about crossing a line of another culture. So I don't do that.
So is this maybe because you before you mentioned like this, you open a door, you just for yourself, for the person, for the individual.
Yeah.
You help open the door, and then you have to go yourself. Everybody has to go to self and find its own path.
Well, that's their choice. Teachers come and teachers go. We have different teachers at different times in our life. To me, I've never had just one teacher. Everybody says, oh, my teacher, this. Everywhere I go, it doesn't matter which race, they're always saying, my teacher, the one teacher. There are many teachers in this world.
And teachings in the life.
Well, teachings in life, yes, theoretically, but traditionally, there's two different things there again.
Okay.
Right? So over here is that more of a, you know, how you teach people in mainstream society on, you know, but over here, there's that teaching from the nation and how one nation would teach their children, or how one nation does ceremonies, or how one nation speaks their language, all of these different things. And yeah, that's kind of where it's at.
Okay, maybe just to close this chapter, are people from all nations welcome at your place? So even from, I don't know, from
Oh yeah.
other countries and so on?
Yeah, all people are welcome. You know, we can't say no. They just have to understand, come, ceremony, come do your thing, but at the same time, just, you know, relax. Don't come in here trying to take our teachings and leave saying you're a medicine man or medicine woman. Just leave feeling good about yourself. You know, you got what you needed out of the whatever you've learned, whether, you know, sweat lodge, whatever, different ceremonies, all races are welcome, you know, and that's fine. Yeah, that's the way it is.
And you talked about the healing house. It's like a vision of you to build a healing house so that you can do the teachings the whole year, because you have very cold winters compared.
Yeah.
And just my question is there any, like, could a listener now, for example, do a donation for that or so? Is this how you would raise money, or is it different ways for you?
Konstantin is just trying to get me to put a plug in for my society, so yeah, it's hard. Wheel of Life Society, you know, it's pretty simple. Wheel of Life Society, on Google it,
And then
there's the site.
Something. Okay.
You know, what fascinates me about that Wheel of Life Society, it's the only one in the world. There's no other one like it. You know, usually a lot of times you get a whole bunch of, you get a lot of Wheel of Life, but you only got one Wheel of Life Society, which was really good.
Very good.
But yeah, if you choose to find in your heart that you want to make a contribution, you know, it helps people, you know. Back home, you know, right now we've got the foundation laid out on the land. That's done. Now we're going to start looking at how we're going to get the materials to build the walls and put the roof on. So we're getting that far. Yeah.
Okay. Step by step. Great.
And then next step after that was probably kitchens and stuff like that. So it's a lot of work, you know. It's a lot of being creative. Yeah. And the other part of it is built by the people, for the people. So, you know, just closing on the healing house part, little story, quick story is I went to help the boys in a teaching at the treatment center where they're at. And as I went to teach them, they asked, how's the healing house going? One of the guys asked. And I said, oh, it's going good. You know, we're trying to figure out how we're going to lay the concrete on the ground. He said, that so-and-so over there, he used to run his own cement foundation building. And the young man pipes up and he says, oh, I'll come up and I'll do it, uncle. You know, the first time I ever met the boy. You know, a week later or so, not even maybe, they drove up there, you know, said, get me 6 guys. And I'll teach them how to, so we laid the foundation. So it was really good. So yeah, that's kind of, I'll leave it there.
How it works, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Darrell. So maybe just, I told you already, I have always the one question about, is it a wish or is it a vision or is it just a thought? If you could change something in the world, or if you have a good wish for the world, what would it be?
Well, I can't rub my belly and make a wish. So I'm just funning you, Konstantin. They're having a hard time getting some humor out of this man. You know, like the genie, make a wish, no. But if I had a thought, it would be that we eliminate, you know, we would have not allowed, for me, just personally, just me, I would have never allowed the churches on the lands. They were designed to kill our way of life, take our spirituality away. As in closing, as in the beginning, we were sent to residential schools. We were physically, mentally, emotionally, and sexually abused for generations by the church. And they took our spirituality away, along with the federal governments and the Queen. So there's a lot at play in how I feel personally about it. And I'm not offending anybody, you know. I just believe that because we have an identity. We are a nation with a language. We are a nation with a territory. And we've never ever signed a treaty, or we've never ever lost in war to the crown. We own it. And our people believe that wholeheartedly, based on the declaration of the Lulwa tribe. And I'll say that one more time so it's easy to find on internet. The declaration of the Lulwa tribe is very self-explanatory on how our people feel about our land. We never lost it, ceded or surrendered. None of it. And spirituality, the church came in and they basically kind of took over our way of life through the laws of Canada, eliminating, going back to, I was going to finish the story from the beginning, so go way back at the beginning. I talked about when they eliminated our ability to ceremony through law in the 1870s. And 1952 was the time they finally allowed natives, our indigenous people, to have ceremonies. And in 1954 was actually 2 years later, the first ceremony. I think it was down the coast, west coast, Vancouver Island maybe, in that area, had their first ceremony in 1954, thereabouts. That long, the church has buried our way of life. But the thing they couldn't do is get rid of us. You know, as long as I'm still alive, I will continue to teach our way of life. Because what little I know, and I don't know very much, I just know a little bit. But I will help teach the younger generation, because that keeps our nation alive. And many others in our nation, our singers, our dancers, our knowledge keepers, our language teachers, you know, play different roles in our survival into the future. But in that, Konstantin, I would like to thank you for taking the time to interview me. We talked about this for quite some time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I want to tell you a story. Can I tell you a story
Please.
before we close?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So what a beautiful feather, you know. I love that feather. Got that from a man by the name of Halmut at the gathering. It's a beautiful feather. It's a red road in the middle, just my little thought. This is the high road, right in the middle of this feather, all the way down to right to the tip, from the bottom, all the way is the high road in the center here. And each little strand on this feather represents a block in our life that we may have hit. We come to an end, and when we hit that end, bang our head against the wall a few times like I did. We all do. And we turn around and go back to our center, back into the high road again. And we continue to journey up into where we need to be until our time comes to be an ancestor. Because one day we all become an ancestor. You know. So, my dear people, just take care of yourself. Track your identity. Enjoy your time in life while it's there. And be happy. That's all I have to say, all my relations.
Thank you very much, Darrell.